Watch live. I got it on YouTube.
All right, we are up. You see us on YouTube. This is the first Pixel Fondue live roundtable broadcast, and we're here with a number of contributors and co-founder Yazan Malkash. And so first off, I think maybe before we get around and introduce everybody, let's talk a little bit about what Pixel Fondue is. Pixel Fondue got started a couple months ago. We've quickly gained a lot of subscribers on YouTube and on our page, our webpage. It was really started by Brad Peebler, who was, you remember, everybody who uses Moto knows Brad. Brad's a long time, initially, way back in the days, he was at Nuke and Lightwave and was a founder of Luxology when they got acquired by the Foundry. He was, I believe, Yazan, correct me if I'm wrong, the president of the Americas over there. Is that what
that is? Correct. That is the official title at that time.
So as many of you are aware, Brad left recently, and before he left, he wanted to make sure that the community was in good hands because he really spent a lot of time building that. And while there is a great community over at the Foundry, we also have started this thing over at Pixel Fondue. So Brad had contacted Yazan, who also recently left the Foundry, went back to his production studio 9B. Is that correct, Yazan? I'm just going to keep doing is that correct? Here we go. Thumbs up.
I'm going to give you a thumbs up or like pinky down.
Pinky down.
Pinky down. All right. So, we put this together with no real long-term plan, but Brad recruited Adam and William, and I contacted Ed and Alex, and I think Alex actually contacted me, and we got a number of other contributors like Richard Yacht and Ellery and some other well-known people in the Moto community, and we started this thing, and it's doing well. So we're trying this broadcast, and we're going to talk about just some things today, like Adam's recent flurry of plugins and some of William Vaughn's, who's been very active on Pixel Fondue, has really been putting out a tremendous amount of content for the community, talk about what he does and how he gets all that done. We'll have future broadcasts that talk about plugins like V-Ray or Octane or the current state of Moto, or we'll talk about other things like CAD rendering or maybe Adobe software or Substance Design or whatever, is in the sort of general milieu of what we all do here. So I think we'll just get started, and let's just go around and introduce ourselves, and then we'll jump in and talk about Adam stuff. I'm Greg Leuenberger, Sabertooth Productions. I'm up here in Silicon Valley. Do a lot of work with the tech companies up here as well as the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and I've been using Moto since I think probably the beta days of 101. Was a Lightwave user prior to that, and yeah, that's enough for me. So we jump over to Yazan.
Yazan Malkash, I think, Moto since the beginning. I was Lightwave before. We use a bunch of stuff now. It's too many to list. Clo, Marvelous, ZBrush, RealFlow, Maxwell, Octane.
Keep going.
I can keep going. This is After Effects, Photoshop. But
I used
anything basically.
GIMP one time. I used Microsoft Word at least twice.
Yes. Yes. I have that on my resume. I can definitely use the Office suite pretty well. Fluent. No, but basically any tool that gets the job done in a faster, efficient, more friendly, without less. I've already lost all this hair. I don't want to lose more of this hair. So anything that'll keep my hair intact is the tool I will go to get stuff done. So far, those are the tools that have been doing so. Oh, and Substance stuff as well.
Yeah, Yazan has also released a number of his own things to the community, like Slick and the Material Pack way back when.
Yep. Slick 2 was the last one. I'm contemplating a material library now. Just not sure if I'm going to be doing it, but we'll see how it goes.
Sounds good.
Yeah, just doing some render visualization pipeline work and some actual production work for apparel, design products, and biomedical visualization. That's it.
All right, William Vaughn, Proton Vaughn. Are you still going by Proton, William, or just straight up William now?
Yeah, just William. I've spent years trying to drop the nickname because I used it for so many years. It's hard to shake.
Yeah.
But yeah, William. So I work for New Balance, the shoe company, and I also do character modeling on the side for freelance, and I also do one-on-one training. So that pretty much keeps me busy. Besides, of course, all the Pixel Fondue work. I've been using Moto since I think version 4, but I'm not sure. And of course was a long time Lightwave user before that.
So clarify for me really quickly. My daughter had just read the book Ready Player One, and I know you were a fan of the book, and you perhaps did some concept work for that lately. I know I just wanted to bring that up because I saw something on the forums I thought was really cool.
Yeah, it was actually pretty exciting because I love the book. I've listened to the audiobook I think 3 times now. It's kind of one of my go-tos when I'm running. But so they had a contest where you could design an avatar for the movie, and I think I submitted 5 designs and they picked my first one. So it's supposed to appear somewhere. They're calling it background graffiti art. So I don't know what that means until I see the movie or I see it in a teaser trailer or something. But I got the actual payment for the work about a week and a half ago. So to me that made it official. So
you got paid. All right.
I got paid. So that was kind of cool.
Nice.
I like that. So if you don't know, Ready Player One is a science fiction book, but it deals a lot with 80s pop culture, right, William?
Yeah, it's a love song to the 80s. If you grew up in the 80s, it's a must-read book. It's pretty amazing.
So Ed looks a little young, but I think a lot of us grew up in the 80s here. So, and my daughter, she's 12, but she's, for whatever, God knows why, is obsessed with the 80s. And I think her favorite band is Journey. So.
Wow.
All right. Ed Ferrari, why don't you tell us about yourself?
Okay, so I've been in Los Angeles for the past 10 years or so. And I've been basically in the film, television, commercial industry as a extra and stand-in. And that just means I'm in the background for movies. But I've been with Moto since 601. I just kind of discovered it after, basically through ZBrush. I was just trying to make my sculptures look nicer. And Moto has a great renderer. So that's how I kind of discovered that. And it's just been kind of a hobby. But I'm loving it. I've learned a little bit of mesh fusion. That's basically what I've been focusing on with Pixel Fondue. So
yeah, when I first asked Ed to join Pixel Fondue, it's because I saw his vast amount of mesh fusion tutorials, and I sort of recognized that young, energetic, gonna release a bunch of tutorials. And so I used to be that way a long time ago. Back in I think Moto 201, I released a bunch of stuff, like 30 videos in one day or something. All right, this guy's got the energy. Going to contact him, see what's going on. And then, he sent me his bio. He's like, Greg, I haven't, I'm not as experienced as some of you guys. Been doing this all your lives. And, but, I've been working in the production industry, and I've actually been, he mentioned that he's been an extra in some movies. He lives down there in Hollywood, and mentioned he was an extra in Supergirl, which caught my ear because my kids watch that show. So Ed, just real quickly, how do you become
Greg,
an extra?
Your kids.
Supergirl's, I kind of like Supergirl.
Out here it's super easy. I mean, there's the infamous central casting. When I first moved out here, I didn't know what to do, so I just joined central casting, and basically they send you out on all sorts of jobs.
You just join them, send a headshot, say I'm available for anything. Give me a call if you got something.
Basically, they have your sizes and everything. They know what they take pictures of you and stuff. So
any way I could become a stormtrooper through that?
Probably. Yeah.
All right.
Well, so on Supergirl, I was just a DEO agent, just one of the people in the background as basically a SWAT type of guy. They have kind of it's kind of like the government, like the fake government, outfit that they. That kind of tracks down Supergirl and stuff.
What episode was it, so we can look for you on Netflix?
the whole first season before they moved up.
The whole first season. Okay.
Yeah, I was like a regular.
Regular on Super. All right, I'm going to show my cat. I know that guy. I'm going to be impressed. All right, Alex. So Alex actually contacted me and said, "Hey, I want to join Pixel Fondue. I like what you guys are doing." He's a little bit unique among at least the guys here on the broadcast because Alex is a Nuke expert, correct? As well as a Moto user. And he's also, it's what, I don't know what time it is in Germany right now, but I know you're up since 4 a.m. because you have a new child in the home. So we'll let Alex see if he can tell us who you are, give us a little info about yourself, and we'll forgive the glazed look on your face.
Isn't that bad? Well, I've started actually doing 3D with Studio Max. Quickly switched over to Maya. I've been doing that for a while. Looked at Moto, I think, when it came out, and could make heads or tails of the interface back then. quickly dropped it again, and I think I got it at 501 for a project that quickly got scrapped, so I didn't actually use it back then. And have been an active user since 801. And as you already said, I'm also doing like compositing, Nuke, Fusion, all the node-based.
But Alex also does automation stuff. He does a lot of scripting and stuff to make his stuff quick and easy.
Yeah. Whenever something bugs me, I go into coding mode and why
doesn't
this work?
So we could expect maybe some scripting tutorials from you on Pixel Fondue, or maybe some Nuke introduction to Nuke tutorials.
Yes, definitely. I'm working on a bunch.
Excellent. Okay. Adam O'Hearn, sort of the Energizer bunny of the 3D world. He's the most energetic guy. So listen, Adam's on the...
Are we going to have new avatars based on what Greg's descriptions are?
I swear, so Adam's on the East Coast, and I'm on the West Coast. I noticed on our Slack channel, he's bouncing around. I stay up late. I like to work late at night, so it's probably 2, 3 in the morning out here in California. I noticed Adam's already up in the DC area, like coding away on his new plugin. So I don't know where you get the energy. You always sound super energetic on all your videos. We're going to stick on Adam a little bit, because if you haven't noticed, he's released a ton of very cool kits lately for Moto. And so Adam, I'm going to let you talk about yourself. Adam comes from the CAD world. I didn't even know this, but I used to go to a site called SolidSmack a lot. And I was first introduced to SolidWorks a number of years ago when the foundry, or actually it was Luxology at the time, was they had licensed the Moto renderer, and they brought me on to help create the bunch of materials and the initial interface and some of the features for PhotoView 360, which I'm not even sure is in SolidWorks anymore. But I used to go to SolidSmack just to kind of get a idea of what SolidWorks was and what the community was like. And just recently I find out, Adam, you were a co-founder of that site?
I co-own it, yeah. Josh Mings was the original founder, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago or something like that. We joined forces. We each respectively started our CAD sites about the same time. He had SolidSmack and I had CADjunkie.com. And his was more of a news blog and mine was more of training. And so we joined forces and became one company 4 or 5 years ago now. And so we've been building, we've built both over the years. We focused a lot more on SolidSmack over the last few years for various reasons. But yeah, so we've been thick as thieves quite a while. It's a great site. And so it's my favorite website, and it has nothing to. It's not like.
Well, he's a funny writer, Josh Mings.
Josh is hilarious. He's so funny.
I mean, if you like, and he does a little bit of an art dump every week or whatever. It's just if you don't have to be into CAD. But if you like technology and you like just sort of funny writing, SolidSmack, I'd totally head over there. It's great. Yeah,
we try to be what we tell our writers is that SolidSmack is not about the A and it's not about the B. It's about the stuff in between A and B. So it's not about napkin sketches. There are way too many sites about that. And it's not about finished glossy product shots, because there are way too many websites about that. We're about the blood, sweat, and tears that gets you between those things. And that honestly is a minority of the content. Most of the content is just kind of more broadly looking at things that would interest someone who is into machining or 3D printing or CAD or rendering or any of those kinds of things. Just kind of stuff that's interesting to folks like that. And so it's a lot of fun. It's a great site.
Yeah, so let's jump into some of the kits you released, and everybody else here, just jump into the question if you want to. Does anybody else use Zen UI or any of the other kits? Raise your hand, maybe. I use Zen. I'm going to be getting Kelvin.
Which finger was that, Yasin?
Yasin. I definitely did all of them. In no particular order. I've never done one of them on its own.
And where was I? Oh, yeah. He just released a preview of another one called Tagger, which looks awesome, which I will definitely be getting. But so I'm going to everybody jump into the question. But Adam, first of all, where do you get not just the time, but sort of the inspiration for this? It feels to me like you've got a notepad next to your computer while you work in Moto, and you keep a list of things that could be better. Something along those. That's what it feels like to me, because when you use Zen and you look at Tagger especially, I see all these things I've been sort of like asking for, having in the back of my head for years now, because it's a type of thing when a developer creates something, they're not necessarily doing that work 10 hours a day. They're creating a feature, but not necessarily doing that work. And your stuff looks like it's done by somebody who does this work 10 hours a day. It has sort of shortcuts and design aspect of it. So tell us how you sort of create this stuff, I guess.
Well, I'm an industrial designer, and so I design stuff, and I teach people to design stuff, and I make websites about designing stuff, and I write software that helps people design stuff. And so it's all kind of around that, and so I kind of have a myopic view of the world. I guess and so that probably helps. I mean, I think when I think about when I use Moto, which I have been since, I guess I started in 301 or something. I pretty much, when I started Moto in 301, I hated it. I could not stand that software. It crashed all the time. And I just wanted to kill somebody every time I use this piece of software, because I come from the CAD world where, you're using, whatever. I used NX and CATIA and SolidWorks and Alias, all of these big, at the time, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 a seat packages with hundreds of developers working full time. And what people don't realize about CAD versus these little DCC apps, I say little because something like Moto can be built by a dozen people over the course of a few years, whereas something like CATIA is built by literally hundreds of people over the course of decades. It's the scale is completely different.
Yeah, I was shocked at how big the CAD world was when I went to SolidWorks World the first time. It was bigger than Macworld. It was bigger. It was as big as SIGGRAPH, but for one program. It's a huge world.
Well, if you look at Autodesk's, Autodesk actually publishes, of course, because they're a public company, they publish where most of their revenue comes from. Something like 30% of their revenue has anything to do with the stuff you know them for. That is Maya, Max, VFX related stuff. The other 70% is CAD, and that is the quote unquote boring stuff. But that's where the real money is. Anyway, I come from that world where software is expected to be stable. You buy a product and it just works off the shelf. You don't have to be a technical director that can kind of get into the nitty gritty and write all of your scripts to make things work. Things just are meant to work the way that they do. They can have all kinds of annoying things about them. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying it was a different expectation when I got into Moto, and suddenly you have to roll your own for literally everything that you want. If you want a tool to behave a certain way, you're going to have to dive into the tool pipe and save something and get into an XML file and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, so that's how it started. Was just it was just in Moto 301, just hacking my way through it because my boss told me I had to. And then I kind of got hooked on it gradually.
And now I know what you're talking about, but we're all
you know who I'm talking about, exactly. I wanted nothing to do with it. I was like, leave me out of this. Fun
fact, I used to work with his boss at the time. And then I got introduced into Adam. That was the first time, I think. Were you fresh out of college at that point?
I had actually had, that was my second corporate job. Yeah. I'd spent a couple of years at Black & Decker designing power tools, and then I went.
Yeah, it definitely felt like you did not want to be there at that point.
With Moto, yeah, the job was fine, but yeah, Moto, I was not my cup of tea. It's gotten better. It's changed a lot. At this point, like with Moto 10.2, I'm sitting here doing stuff for a big ad campaign in the moment, and everything is going great. Like, it almost never crashes on me. Part of that is because I know what I'm doing and I know how to avoid the parts that are going to crash. Part of that is that, but a big part of that is that Moto's just gotten so much better. So I don't want to go too long in this conversation saying all this negative stuff. I mean, Moto 10.2 is a fantastic product, and I think it's up there with anything else. But anyway, yeah. So I guess I've been using it a long time, using it 8 years or something plus.
Yeah.
So
Yasin, you do some design work as well. And one of the things I've noticed on the latest version of Zen, and if you haven't used Zen, head over to Mechanicolor. There's some good videos for it. There's probably a couple on Pixel Fondue as well. But there's a new way to work, and it's not just a new layout, which I actually don't really use that much. I use a couple of keyboard shortcuts that bring up some palettes that Adam created that have everything you need, and there's really a lot of thought put into it. And it's really similar to the original Moto 101, 201, 301, where it was a smaller program. They had a little more focus, and there was you could just see a lot of thought. Things like double clicking for an edge loop. That's all started with Moto, right? A lot of thought put into this stuff. And with the V key and the G key and Zin, they bring up these palettes. They've now made them context sensitive. So whether you're in polygon mode, point mode, edge mode, BIDA mode, you get different things. And Yazin, you've had some thoughts about that in the past. Are you happy to see that? Is that something you'd like to see in Moto in the future, or is how do you feel about that?
Now that you don't work at the Foundry, you can say whatever you want.
Can I though? That's the question. Can I really say what I want?
Or you can always say no comment. But I guess do you think
what?
that's an interesting way to go?
I'll be a little bit open about this. A while back, we had contacted Adam because we wanted to collaborate on doing something about some of these things. The nice thing about when you do talk to somebody like Adam and work with him is that there's a lot of ideas, a lot of back and forth, a lot of wonderful collaborations that can come out of it. Unfortunately, I don't think we can code as fast as the ideas come out. Certain things made it into the system from a
Moto
structural
10.2 brought in a lot of stuff that we built, Yazin and I built together. So me and Yazin and Mark Brown all worked super closely for about a year.
Yeah.
And we did.
But all of it was under the hood, and I think what Adam has done is flushed it out. And I think that honestly, it is, to me, it was always the natural progression for where Moto needs to be, and kind of the same way that you're talking about how when it first started, it needs to get there for it to really evolve. I would really hate for it not to grab what Adam has done and really put it as a part of the native app in the future. I think it's the right way to go. I think the apps really haven't evolved, not just Moto in itself, but a lot of the other apps as well need to go in that direction, because I just think we're there. Like, our technology should be able to support where we are, and I think a lot of them are just haven't caught up yet. The idea
I would want to keep this pretty, I think of this as a super upbeat thing. I'm excited about it. Obviously, I've been doing a lot of stuff lately. I think I just had a lull and I had some projects unexpectedly kind of cut off for a little while, so I had some time. And you mentioned early on in this conversation, do I keep a notepad next to me? I don't really, but I sort of do. If I have an idea for something, I'll make myself a note in GitHub or something, or if it's a to-do on another plugin that already exists, or if it's a new one.
The difference between me and Adam is Adam can actually go and code these things. I've just got a list.
Right.
Yeah, I could
got a list this long. But
please make this.
Gonna do it for me.
Well, the thing is, Moto is like, I've been like head down in Moto for so long, I can't make good comparison statements. But based on my knowledge from the CAD world and what little I've done in Lightwave and Max and whatever, is that Moto is incredibly customizable. It's one of the most customizable pieces of software I've ever seen. And it's not just that they give you like a lot of tools for customizing things, which they actually don't, like dragging and dropping icons on your screen. Most programs have that. You don't have that in Moto, and yet somehow Moto is customizable. Well, actually it is. It's way more powerful than drag and drop tools around your screen. It gives you unbelievable control to make this program into whatever you want it to be, which is a really, as you learn about how it works, it's a really frustratingly difficult thing to learn how to do, but you can do a heck of a lot with it, and that's been what I've been learning as I go through this.
And I think what's nice about this is that for like somebody like Adam who can go in and navigate and frustrate the hell out of himself, but to get it to that point where then everybody else can really just reap the benefits, I think that's where his tool is really, it's worth the while because he's put in that effort for everybody else not to have to put in that effort. And I think that just makes it really valuable for a lot of the tools that he's built. And I think one of the things that I've noticed that when I did work with Adam, his mind is, what's the best way to put this without sounding negative in any way, but he's not as forgiving as VFX people. Coming from design, and to me that's a good thing because maybe that's what it is. I think VFX artists generally are more forgiving with their software. Like, I'm willing to go and put up with some frustration to get what I want. I think the people that come in from design are a bit more like, no, this really should work this way, and I'm not going to put up with that. And I think that's a good thing because I do think that eventually the artists from VFX will appreciate the effort and the polish that's on top, that they don't have to, like, why should you, like, right? I'm going to go off on
all right, I'm going to cut you off before you go on a tangent.
But basically when you render out, like, your passes, for example, and then you have to reestablish your passes as a VFX artist every single time in your compositing application, like, why do you have to do that every single time? Why isn't it a single button and you get it? I mean, it just boggles the mind. For somebody that comes from design and says, are you like that's not really? Are you serious about this? No, that's not gonna like. No, I'm gonna go with scripted. I think Adam has the odd flexibility of being a kind of a unicorn where he has the technical knowledge, he can code it, but he also has the understanding of how this thing should work.
This is getting uncomfortable. I mean, it's look, guys, I'm making some simple cakes.
I'm just expecting that the next round or episode 2, you just do that for me. We're totally good. But.
So yeah, right. Well, I will definitely talk about the unicorn status of everybody in this very non-diverse group. I want to throw that in there. We need to work on diversity, guys.
We're trying. It is hard. Let me tell you, we are trying to work on diversity. This whole industry it's difficult. So listen to me. Really as you're saying this, if you do not look like one of the people on this, contact me, Greg at Fondue, and we will get you set up because we are looking for diversity.
Do you have a binder full of women by any chance?
I don't have a binder. I don't have a leaflet.
So anyway, that's terrible. I'm not even going to laugh at that anymore. So I think basically go to mechanicalcolor.com and spend all your money.
There you go.
That's what I'm. No, seriously though. Like the thing is, I'm making these plugins that are things that I want. There's stuff that I make because I want to have them, and I roll things tight because that's what I like. That's how I like things to be. And when I do it, as I learn how this stuff works, I just learn more and more, and I see more and more opportunities because I know how to do things now. So the more stuff I fight my way through and finally figure out how to make the API do this or that thing, then suddenly I'm open to do a lot more of the ideas that I've had in the past that I could never even imagine being able to figure out. So, and I try to do things in a way, because I worked with the Foundry really closely and I worked with Joe and Mark, I know how you're supposed to code things for Moto, and I know how to set things up in a way that's localizable and all that kind of stuff to make things, pretty tight. So it's been fun to learn, but essentially my approach is this. My goal is not to sell a gazillion of these things. My goal is to sell, 50 or 100 of them to people that really care, rather than sell thousands and thousands to people who don't. And then to do that with products that I'm proud of and that I want to use, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time fighting with people about this or that thing, or if you don't like the product, I just give people their money back. That's just like if people are bugging me too much about stuff that they don't like it, I'm like, look, have your money back. I don't care. I can't deal with it. So I don't want to be a software company. I just want to make cool tools that I want to use and then have other people contribute to them by telling me how to make them better. So
I don't get how you can have all this polish and yet whatever that thing is in the background in your studio,
which one
does not tile properly. How the hell does that not tile properly?
What are you talking about?
I think, what is it, like the background wallpaper or like foam or whatever is that pattern that looks like
that?
That not tiling has bothered me ever since this call started, and I don't know
wrong.
how
I don't manufacture the acoustic foam. I just ordered it on Amazon.
Adam, I would expect a feature request to go in directly to their headquarters.
Yes. So along these lines, William,
dude, wait. Let me introduce William for a second, because everybody's been making a big deal about how I've had all this energy, but every day I wake up and I look at whatever William has done overnight while I've been sleeping, and I just feel demoralized and don't understand how. I don't think he's actually human.
Inadequate. Inadequate's the word we're looking for.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, for everything people have been saying about me, William's the real deal.
Well, William, it's a really broad spectrum of content you're putting up. You're putting up interviews, you're putting up tutorials, you're putting up rigs and Moto content. You're also working on some specialized scripts and things that it looks like you create them for your character modeling work, if I'm not wrong. Tell us a little bit about just how you get all this stuff done.
It's kind of not really by choice, because if I don't do it, it eats at me. So what I do is I keep a list. I've got the virtual notepads on my desktop, and every time I knock something off, I'm putting like 4 or 5 things on. So I can't ever seem to get the list down. It's just one of those things. But the list actually helps me, because what happens is, and I think my neighbor has decided to start mowing his yard, which is interesting.
We can hear.
So okay, good. So one of the things that used to happen is I would have these ideas. This is like maybe 15 years ago, and I have these ideas of things that I want to do, but but when I had the free time, I would forget what they were. And so now what I do is I'm just like I'm looking at the list right now. I've got several things under the interview list. So I've got some interview questions out to people. I've got some interview time scheduled, and then I've got some interviews that just need to be edited and formatted. But then I put out a video this morning, but I've got 8 video ideas on my list, and then by the end of the day, I'll probably have 2 or 3 more listed on there. And so what I do is that when I have a free moment, I don't have to think about, okay, what am I going to do, which could eat up time. I just pick something on the list and I do it.
But do you find that those lists are actually prioritized correctly? Because for me, it just becomes whatever's at the top of the list. So, i.e., whatever I thought of most recently, rather than whatever is actually most important.
I think I'm a little lazier because mine is, what do I have time to do? If I look at something on the list and I go, yeah, I want to do that, but I only have 15 minutes, I pick something that I think I can get done in 15 minutes. And then the other thing that really helps, and I've been preaching to a lot of people about it because I just strongly believe in it, is, man, I started running a few years ago, and I get so much done away from the computer on my runs. So when I go for a run, I have nothing but time to think. And so I talk about it in the modeling book I wrote, where I'll model in my head before I actually model something. So when I sit down to model something, I've already done it. I just have to kind of go through the steps. And the same thing goes with like writing articles or doing videos or doing any of that stuff. When I go on a run, I'm thinking about what I'm going to do so that when I get back to do it, I don't have any questions about it. I just have to do it. It's kind of going through the motions.
William's an ultra marathoner. William's an ultra marathoner, and if you do any marathon running or further, then you'll understand. Like I've done the same thing, and I run. Most of us who do that kind of running don't wear any headphones or anything like that. I assume William probably doesn't. Do you listen to any music or anything when you're running?
I actually multitask. I'm listening to a book. So I'm always listening to a book when I run, but I can't help
it. He's doing emails. He's rigging in his head. At the same time, he's also scripting in the background. He's got,
right.
He's taking notes as he's running. He's autographing for people on the side. I mean, it's awesome.
I just try and be as efficient with my time as possible. My wife was making fun of me one day because when I first started learning how to code in Python, I was carrying around my Python book. And any free moment I had, I would read a portion of the book, and she said, you can take a break, and I'm like, well, no, I mean, I'm taking a break. Nothing's going on. I got 5 minutes. I can get 5 minutes of time in on the book. So I think it's really just about taking advantage of the time.
That's probably why it's demoralizing when you do wake up. Like Adam was saying, like I wake up and I see like there's 2 or 3 videos coming out from William. I'm like, I give up for the day. I'm good. He's got it covered. He'll teach them what they need to know.
Okay, but in fairness, guys, I'm doing 60-second. Well, I mean, it takes longer to make than 60 seconds, but there's 60-second videos.
Those are great, though. I love the
60-second
videos.
Those are awesome, and they're super hard to do because you have to put a lot of thought into that to get the exact correct content in there. It's like a little haiku there. You got everything.
So someone mentioned that online as well. But I am cheating. I'm going to give away a little cheat that I'm doing. I am trimming a little bit off of the Pixel Fondue intro from time to time, just fractions.
Not when Greg is around, William.
Yeah, thumbnails better keep looking good.
Yeah, and I keep trimming off the end as well. So sometimes the tire screeches are longer than others, but it is a little bit of a challenge on some of them to keep them in that time. But I also I like the idea of the 60 seconds. It actually really wasn't my idea. A friend of mine, Ron Thornton, a few years ago said, "Hey William, I like these videos that you're putting out, but I just don't have time for them. Can you make like 1 and 2 minute videos?" And at the time, I was kind of just doing the videos the way I was doing them. And when I knew I wanted to start making new videos, I went back to that idea of, well, everybody's got a minute. Like everybody has a minute that they could take every day, and even if they just learn a little nugget. And I do think that there's a place for the longer videos where you're you're stepping through everything in great detail. But what I usually do when I see a video is I click through it. I don't watch like a 20-minute video. I just don't have time.
Oh yeah.
So what I do is I just go click, 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 and I kind of hit the high points. And that's kind of how I look at these, is that I'm trying to get as much information as I can in them, but I'm really just, I don't need to teach you what the bevel tool does. I just need to say, use the bevel tool here.
There's different ways people watch videos. Sometimes you're in the middle of a project, it's due in 3 hours, you can't figure something out, so you jump on YouTube, like how do you track the camera in After Effects again? How do you do that? You check it real quick, you click through, you look at the 60-second, you're looking for something short. What I've noticed is since I've gotten a 60-inch 4K screen at home, I tend to watch YouTube on the couch with a beer, and people are starting to watch that way too. And so that way, the longer things like this show right now is something people might kick back and watch with a beer, or some sort of somebody messing around with Octane render for a half an hour, just kind of see how it works. But yeah, I think there's places for both of them. I'd like to try some of the shorter videos as well. I'm looking at some of the analytics. Ed, your videos are very popular, the Mesh Fusion ones. And you could probably benefit for some short, like 60-second, quick, how to do a quick trim, how to do a quick, are you thinking about doing anything like that?
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, I'll definitely do that.
And have
I'm shooting for the 6-second Vine video.
Right.
You're right. Learn Moto by Vine. If only Vine were still with us.
Yes.
Yeah. I never got into Vine. I have enough things to waste my time with.
That's why it's dead.
So speaking of time, this is the type of thing where I think we were shooting for a half hour. We're at, I think, around 45 minutes. Do you want to keep going for a few minutes, or should we just?
My experience with these things, I did a podcast for many years. We did over 100 episodes, and had all kinds of people on. It was a really fun experience. And what we found consistently when we polled all of our listeners was that no matter how long the show was, they always thought it should be longer. And that blew me away, because from the very beginning, I was like, let's get this done. Let's get in and out. We want people to, people only want a 10-minute show or whatever. They don't have any time. Turns out people put it on their headphones and they just kind of do their work while they listen. And I actually do the same thing. So, I'm not saying that we have to do that. I'm just saying, like, generally I don't think we're going to be bothering anybody if we
Alex stayed up late in Germany, and we haven't heard a lot from him. So I want to jump back to Alex here. And can you tell us about some current projects that you're working on, or some past projects you won't get disappeared for if you talk about?
Well, at the moment, I'm working on a CAD project, so I'm hammering pretty heavy on Adam's kits and letting him know where they fail. And,
actually, Alex is he's not a normal customer, just so you know. He doesn't go through the Gumroad thing. He's directly invited to the GitHub project so that he can just get the direct source code and see all of the updates, which is pretty useful.
So, I do a lot of CAD rendering at Sabertooth, a lot of product rendering, and there's certain stages to rendering a CAD file. You have to get the data in, you have to, what I call prepping, where you have to maybe consolidate a bunch of mesh items, or change static meshes to meshes, or deal with replicators. You have to deal with tagging. That's a huge amount of work there. And what sorts of plugins or kits from Adam are you using a lot of in terms of dealing with and prepping this CAD geometry?
Only ones from me, by the way. Don't list anybody else's kits.
Well, apart from mine, of course. No, I've been leaning pretty heavily on Tagger the last few days, which is just a godsend for applying materials, cleaning up part tags, and all that stuff. Especially a dynamic updating list of all the materials in the scene. So it's just a one-click apply for every material that's in the scene, and it sorts it by recent.
So this is starting to sound like a commercial, like an infomercial for Tagger. Like, this whole thing is really a surreptitious way.
Hey man, I've been talking about Tagger for Tagger
but
for
I'm telling you
8 years.
Me too. That's exactly the thing. Even if I weren't getting money from people like buying this plugin, like, I would still want them to buy it because it just makes Moto like not suck so much. It's a terrible thing to say. It makes it so much easier. There are so many things in Tagger that I have wanted to do for so many years and didn't know how to do before, and have kind of gradually built up enough knowledge to where I could put this together. And even now that I finally released it, of course, there are more things that I want to put in it. but at some point you got to ship, I guess.
Well, CAD rendering and working with CAD files is a very fertile ground for Moto. I think it's a great niche for Moto, and it's a fantastic platform for rendering. You can use it's a great built-in renderer. You can use Octane, you can use Maxwell, you can use V-Ray now, and I think initially, the people who created Moto really came from the VFX world, and it's a lot different than the CAD world, and the workflow is very different. And they started getting their feet wet with CAD when they had the render license by SolidWorks a number of years ago. But there's a lot to be learned from the CAD world that hasn't quite migrated over to Moto yet. And you need people like Adam who have their feet in both worlds to do that. For instance, again, going with Tagger, when you bring in CAD geometry into Moto, and a lot of people who use CAD software aren't necessarily Moto experts. They've heard it was a good program for rendering, maybe doing some short animations, some things that maybe Keyshot can't do. And so they're just trying to learn the least, as much about Moto as they can to get their work done. And some of the things you don't realize is when you bring in something like a file from SolidWorks, a lot of data there is contained in polygon tags. You have access to bodies and parts and things like that in the CAD assembly as polygon tags, but you don't know they're there unless you really know Moto.
And even if you know Moto, if you dig into the info and statistics panel, it's just a whole big nasty list of stuff. So it's not very useful.
Exactly. So I've been asking for like a PTAG spreadsheet editor or something for years, and I think, and so that's why I was excited when I saw the Tagger program. But I think this is one of the things we can continue to talk about in Pixel Fondue, because I really think VFX is a small space, is extremely competitive, and Moto's up against some pretty heavy players there. But CAD rendering, product rendering, and being a companion app, there's a good niche there for this program. And I think Pixel Fondue can help not just promote that, but be a great resource for people who are trying to use Moto, just trying to get work done and are using Moto as a tool just to do some CAD rendering and some simple animation.
Well, there are persons in this very chat who will start to roll their eyes when I start this little sermon. But I mean, if you
I load my head.
If you look at Keyshot, it costs over twice as much as a seat of Moto, and it doesn't do anything close to what Moto can do.
And they're selling a ton of them.
And they sell way more of them than Moto. The user base for Keyshot is bigger than Moto. It's twice as expensive and doesn't do half as much.
And they're great guys, by the way.
My business partner is marketing manager for Keyshot. Okay, so I tied in with that. I love those guys. They're great. They make a fantastic product. The reason why they win is because their product, you take your CAD geometry, you open it, you drag some materials on it, it looks great. And in Moto, you need to be some kind of unicorn ninja to figure it out, and I think we have to fix that.
So there's no reason that this can't be done in Moto as well, and they've gotten their feet wet with it. They've made some efforts in that direction, but I think a lot of this, I think, will be community driven. I think Pixel Fondue is a good place to sort of push that forward. Ed, I think maybe doing some mesh fusion. I've used mesh fusion with CAD files before, because often, as you guys know, if you get CAD files from a client, they're not always 100% correct, or there's a small update later on. I'll maybe do some audio equipment or something like that, and they'll switch out a port. And instead of waiting for an updated file from the vendor, which can be, it's difficult sometimes to go through 3 or 4 different levels of people in an email to get the right. It's not like getting a JPEG, right? Or a PNG. Getting a CAD file can be a bit of an experience. And so I've used Mesh Fusion to quickly update things like creating a new USB port or something like that on a piece of equipment. So I think,
especially in 10.2, Mesh Fusion handles n-gons and triangles a whole lot better. So if you get CAD geometry that's not perfect, it doesn't have to be anymore with Mesh Fusion.
Wait a minute, you can use Mesh Fusion on CAD stuff?
Well, I haven't tried it, but it's better with n-gons and triangles.
Guaranteed.
No. So what I would suggest maybe is go over to GrabCAD, grab a CAD file, bring it into Moto, and show how you can maybe update a component with Mesh Fusion without having, you could do something in 5 minutes.
You can use auto retopo first. If you do that, then maybe.
So there's some tools in Moto you can use that aren't going to involve you going back to your client and asking for new files, because there's a certain, as many of you know, you have about 3 or 4 opportunities before you piss off your client if you keep going back to them asking for certain files or going back to the designer. So the more you can do on your own using Mesh Fusion or Auto Retopo, something like that, to move the project along without having to constantly bug your client for new stuff or updated stuff, the better it is, the better the relationship is. Would you agree? Raise your hands. 2 hands. Okay. So that's a lot of CAD stuff. Let's talk a little bit about, just jumping over back to William's sort of area. William, I know you're working not just with, you're well known for your characters. That's what your, that's what your posts on the galleries and the community are about. But you said you're working in New Balance. And when you think of CAD, you think of like a new blender or a mouse or something like that, some sort of hard surface object. But you're creating shoes over there. You just, I don't know how much you can talk about this, but is Moto really just a concept tool, or are you actually creating parts that are eventually manufactured?
Right now, it's just for concept. It's just working with the designers and taking their 2D designs and building them in 3D. So they have 3D visualization of the shoes that they're designing.
So I noticed you're using one of the new 10.1, 10.2 features, which is the UV transform mesh operation.
Absolutely.
Create designs on the shoe. Have you done a Vaughn in 60 seconds on that yet?
Well,
Maybe
not necessarily showing
380 seconds. It might be a little longer.
Well, not showing shoe, but showing the 2D faces, which is the same process.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So taking curves.
That was the coolest one too.
I loved it. I got excited just because, of course, I'm a character guy, and over the years, I've worked on several projects where we had to do 2D faces on 3-dimensional characters, and we, and some of the ways that we did it, we on the Batman New Times, which was kind of like the Lego short film that we did with Adam West and Dick Van Dyke and Mark Hamill. We did all of the faces in Lightwave using curves and then freezing them to geometry, and then we morphed them and we animated all the faces. We had to render them out and then map the image sequences back onto the characters. So if you made a change, well, you had to go through that whole process. But also, if you're animating a character and the character looks over here, you have to match up what you're doing in a completely different scene. And then another project, we did a few like that. And then I worked when I was in New York. I worked on a project where all the faces were animated in Flash, and then rendered out and then mapped on. And the beauty of this setup using the procedural tools is that you can still work with 2-dimensional shapes in Moto, but you're able to rig it and animate it, in the scene that you're animating the body. So it's all happening in real time. So it makes it much easier to drive the facial animation to work with the body. So it's using the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's freedom. And then what made it even better was when they introduced, I think it was in 10.1 to 10.2, they introduced the drill and Boolean tools into the procedural stack, and so that's what I was using in that facial in the 2D face setup in the Vaughn in 60 seconds video. Not only to just map the face on, but when the eyes go and look outside of the white of the eye, it's getting trimmed in real time with the drill, with the procedural drill. And that to me was a big game changer with how, I mean, the tools were already powerful. I mean, I felt like they made the curve fill and then the UV transform for modeling shoes because it's so perfect for it. But then when
that
they
might be true.
It might be true.
That might actually be true. Yeah.
When they introduced the drill tools into the stack, that made it so much more useful for the character work that I do, and so now I'm busy trying to convince my clients that I do character work for to do some characters that have 2D faces, just because I'm dying to do another project using these tools that I never had before.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. And Yasmin, you use a program called Marvelous Designer, which I've always been sort of tantalized by as a fabric and clothing system. And I think maybe it's James Darknell, somebody had mentioned they have besides your standard OBJ FBX exports, they've got an LXO export in Marvelous. Now, is there some sort of Foundry Ninja over there helping out, or what's going on with Marvelous? And how does that work with Moto?
When I was working at the Foundry, I think one of the similar to kind of SolidWorks and how some of these things are licensed to other companies, we basically licensed the Moto renderer to Clo 3D, which basically are the company that owns Marvelous Designer, as well as their CAD level product, which is Clo 3D. I think they have Clo Enterprise, and I think now Clo Atelier or something like that.
Super cool product, by the way.
Yeah, and they basically licensed the rendering engine inside of that. And what's cool about that is that it allows you to export out an LXO file, which is basically how they're setting up. Because basically, from their perspective, they're grabbing their simulation mesh and then cleaning it up and putting it with the material library that's based on the same principles as Moto, and then exporting it out as an LXO file with all the shaders. Because that's exactly how the rendering engine inside of it, which is basically Preview, running inside of Clo. I don't think it's in Marvelous Designer, but I think it still exports the LXO file regardless. They're awesome. I've worked with them for a while now. We just finished up. We finished up a while ago, but we just published some of the Under Armour work we did with them. And we used Marvelous Designer. We used also Clo. They're kind of next step up if you're using CAD data with that. And what makes them unique is there are other players out there. There's vStitcher and Optitex, and they're great products. But I think the Clo and Marvelous Designer ones are a bit geared more towards the designers themselves. It's a bit easier to use. You get results that are good looking out of the box and without too much fiddling. And I think that ease of use and intuitiveness really make it an appealing product to use. Marvelous Designer, I think, came out and it wasn't a big hit in the fashion industry as much as it was in games. Because you're creating games, sculpting and like modeling fabrics is just. I'm not saying it's not amazing when you do it, but it's just not the funnest thing to do. And it kind of solved that problem pretty quickly. With now Clo is kind of being picked up more and more in the fashion world, in that, oh my God, we can visualize these designs and we have a pattern to work with. And what's funny about it, I think, from the perspective of somebody coming in from a DC app like Moto or Maya, is that we model, then we UV. And this is almost like you UV and then you simulate the model. Which is exactly how a tailor would do it, or a seamstress would do it, but not how a modeler would do it.
Are we going to see some Marvelous Designer tutorials on Pixel Fondue?
We have one in the works. I think I just have to sit down and edit it. It's been recorded.
Sit down
Unlike William, I don't run, therefore I don't have that luxury time of working on when I'm not working. Nor can I edit while I'm running, unfortunately. But no, we do have it in place, so hopefully we'll have it done, and we've got some good ideas in terms of what we can do on that. And I think once people will start using it more and more, it'll open up that.
It's such a fertile ground for improvement.
Yeah, really, and it's not just for creating just apparel. I've seen people use it obviously to dress up any architectural thing if you're doing curtains or bed sheets, or there's tons of those like crinkled up pillows and bed sheets, and it's a perfect program for these kinds of things. But we've used it on things like shoes and leather for on your headset and all kinds of things to get kind of the results that you're looking for.
So along those lines, we're always looking for new contributors at Pixel Fondue. So if you use, for instance, Substance Designer,
and if you have the last name Malkosh and happen to not be male, and you could totally participate in conversations like these. Actually, Didi Malkosh, we did an interview with her on a recent podcast that we have not. We interviewed her like 3 weeks ago, and I still have not gotten this thing out. It's terrible. But anyway, we did a post about Clo on SolidSmack recently, and that was mainly just to kind of make a promise that we would eventually release this podcast. Anyway, Didi is amazing, and she talks a lot about this stuff and using it specifically at Adidas as well.
So I am looking here. We have 34 viewers. So apparently what tweet must have gone out. So for you guys watching, I appreciate you coming. We did not give any, if you missed the beginning, which you probably did, we didn't give any prior warning on this. We're just trying to figure this out for the first time, the live broadcast. The next time we're going to promote it a little bit better, or purposely promote it and instead of purposely hide it. But we'll put this up for viewing later. We're at an hour now, and I know some of us, probably all of us, have some actual work to do. So
William's got to go run. I mean, we already know that.
Alex has to take a nap. Ed's got another Supergirl episode filming.
That's right.
So I think so maybe we'll call this quits here. Apologies to the 35 people who just jumped on. We will get this up next time. But I think this is a good start. We will next time we'll get on the forums. Maybe we will take some requests for topics. Like I said, we may be application specific like V-Ray or Octane or rendering specific. We may do industry specific like gaming. I'd like to do some gaming stuff. But this is just a brand new community for Moto users and 3D users in general, and we're just getting the ball rolling. I think we're off to a good start. So thanks for jumping in today, guys. Anything else before we sign off?
Thanks to Greg for putting it together.
Yeah, thanks, Greg.
Yeah, thank you, Greg.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, I was going to mention, a lot of people wonder where Brad Peebler is. He's been sort of incognito, and he has, he's in a very fortunate circumstance where he's able to spend some time with his kids now. He's working on this Heirs to the Oceans project. I think Yasmin and I texted him yesterday. We hadn't heard from him for a bit. I think he's literally in some small South Pacific island, working on oceans.
In a submarine.
In a submarine. And so Brad will eventually make his way back. But, the guy's got a well-deserved rest. So that's where he is. So, all right, guys, thanks a lot for jumping in, contributing. We'll see you guys on the forums. We'll see you over at Pixel Fondue, and we'll maybe check on one of these in January. What do you say?
Yep.
Sounds good.
Speaking of the 80s.
All right. Oh, there we go. Guitar. I want that. All right. All right.
All right.
We will check you later. Have a good one. Happy holidays. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.